Okay, let's take a look at, we're going to use the TI Inspire to find derivatives. So if you look here, we have a problem here that says use the following function to solve the parts below. We're given a function, we have to find the first, second derivative, and we also have to find the slope of the tangent line at x equals -3. And the second derivative, we need to input 4. So let's take a look at our calculator because we're going to go right to that. And since we're going to graph here at the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the scratch pad. I prefer this since you can just toggle right and back and forth between the calculator and the graph. And then if you save functions or store them, you can go ahead and graph them pretty fast. So, all right, so how do we do this problem? Well, let's start by entering the function itself. So we're going to have x to the fourth minus 3x squared minus 1. And I'm going to go ahead and say control VAR. And that is going to allow me to store this. I'm just going to type f parentheses x. I'm going to store it as f of x. And notice when you do that, it says done. Now I'm going to go ahead and find the derivative. Now, since we've stored that as f of x, this is going to be really easy. We just go menu, calculus, derivative, and we want to use the variable x. So we're going to type x in there. And then notice the f is in bold because you've stored it as f of x. So you hit enter, and already now I have my derivative. Okay, so we're going to store that. And when you go to store a derivative, I recommend just saving it as g of x. Your calculator doesn't understand f prime of x for some reason. So just save it as g of x, and I hit that, and now I'm done. And now actually I can go ahead and get the slope of the tangent line at -3. So I'm going to go ahead and input g. And then instead of pushing x, we're saying, well, we want to know what y is when x is -3. So I go ahead and I hit enter, and now I have my y value. All right, so we're going to record this info since we got some info here, and then we're going to go on to part B after that. So part A, we know that we have f prime x equals 4x cubed minus 9x squared, which you could do by hand too, but the harder part would be to calculate -3 by hand. I mean, it's not impossible, but when you get bigger numbers, there's a good chance of making an error if you make a small mistake. And when you do it in a calculator, it's nice and fast. So now I'm done with part A. So now we're going to go on to part B here, and we're going to find the second derivative. So let's go ahead with that. So we're going to go back to our calculator here, and we're going to say, okay, well, now I want to find the derivative again, but I'm going to take the derivative of g of x now, right? My first derivative to get to the second. So we go ahead and we type that in. We go to, remember I went to menu, calculus, derivative, hit enter, and now I have my second derivative. So I'm going to save that as h of x. And you can use any real letter you would like, but I tend to just kind of go forward in the alphabet when I'm saving stuff. It works the easiest for me, but you could use, you could use s of x, and that would work fine. Okay, so now we have the second derivative saved, and it asks us to find f double prime of 4, meaning what is the derivative equal to when we input 4 for x. So we'll go ahead and say now h of 4, and that equals 124. So let's record that info now. So we have our second derivative now is equal to 12x squared minus 18x plus 4. And when we input 4 into our second derivative, we get 124. Okay, now if you wanted to save this in your calculator, or if you wanted to graph it, now that's going to be actually pretty easy now because we're in the scratch pad. We're just going to go right over to the graph. Okay, and I'm going to just start by typing in f of x. All right, so now we have f of x here. You can see it clearly. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the tab button. Whenever you want to type or get a new function to graph, to add to the graph, you just hit the tab button. And now I'm going to say, now I want to see the graph of the derivative. So there's g of x. And I'm going to go one more level, so I'm going to hit tab again, and now I want to see the second derivative graphed as well. So if I do that, and notice with your initial function, right, is to the fourth degree, so you have 1, 2, 3 max and mins in the initial. If I look at the initial function here, and then when I go look at the derivative, that's to the third degree, so it has 1 max and 1 min. And then when I get the second derivative, it's a quadratic, right? So it's a parabola. So now you've graphed all three functions here, and you could do other work with that if you needed to, but for the purpose of this problem, we're all done.